All right, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today for a Click That Saves Lives, our occupant protection webinar. This webinar is a product of collaboration between two of our 9 regional safety coalitions here in Louisiana, Acadiana Regional Transportation Safety Coalition and the South Central Regional Safety Coalition. I am Cassie Parker, the coordinator for South Central Regional Safety Coalition.
And I'm Ron Chakowski with the Acadiana region.
And we hope that you are ready to learn more about seatbelt laws here in Louisiana, diversity in seatbelts, statistics on seatbelts, our Saved by the Belt program, as well as our SAD program. We wanted to ensure to keep your attention, so we have a variety of polling questions for you to answer. However, if you have any questions that are not covered, just go ahead and place that in the Q&A. You are automatically muted right now, so if you have any questions, you can use that Q&A to communicate with us as well. This webinar will be recorded and posted online on both the South Central and Acadiana Regional Safety Coalition websites. Today's presenters are a few of our valued safety partners from the state as well as our regions. We have Senior Trooper Jesse Lagrange from Louisiana State Police Troop C. We have Ms. Shanita Vasquez from Louisiana Highway Safety Commission, Ms. Tracy Lemaire from Sudden Impact, Mr. Dylan Ivey from Students Against Destructive Decisions, or SAD. And we'll get started with our agenda. As I mentioned, seatbelt laws, statistics, diversity, Saved by the Belt, peer-to-peer activities. To start our presentation is Mr. Senior Trooper Jesse Lagrange. He is the Public Information Officer at Louisiana State Police Troop C. He's also the Young Drivers Team Leader for the South Central Regional Safety Coalition. He's served 12 years with State Police. He's also a child passenger seat technician. He's been doing that for 11 years. He also does reconstructionist for crash and commercial vehicles. Take it away, Jesse.
Hi, thanks for having me. As Cassie said, I'm Trooper Jesse Lagrange. I'm the Public Information Officer for Troop C. So if you do have questions, comments, we do have the chat box. We encourage you to post them there. But we're going to start off with our first round of questions, and just to gauge your knowledge and see where it's at whenever it comes to seatbelt usage.
All right, we'll give you 1 minute for round 1 of questions. Get your answers in. Time is ticking. And we're going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, hopefully everyone had enough time to go through those 5. And throughout the program, we're going to have 5 polling questions periodically, just to kind of prepare you a little bit. But they do, some of them a little bit later might be a little longer. But see your answers right here. Looks like for number 1, how old do you have to be to ride in the front seat? The majority of you picked 13. And then number 2, is it legal to ride in the cargo area of an SUV? So we're thinking, the way back part of the SUV. That looks pretty good on number 2. Number 3, is it legal to ride in the back of a pickup truck? A little bit closer on that one, but that's a good question because we see that in our area. And then why are seatbelts not frequently present on school buses? So a couple different opinions on that, but we will go over these here in a second. And do farm vehicles drivers have to wear a seatbelt? And that one's kind of spread out too. All right, so here in a second, we'll go ahead and close out this screen. All right. So the first question, how old do you have to be to ride in the front seat? This one can give our parents that may be on a little bit of an issue because some younger children might be already used to riding in the front seat. So the answer is 13 years of age, as you can see, and Louisiana seatbelt law, they were changed last year in 2019 to reflect the best practices whenever it comes to children riding safe in the vehicle. And yes, 13-year-olds, our teenagers, they're not considered so much children anymore, but 12 years old and younger have to be in the back, and that be in the second row or the third row. And a lot of kids, once they hit that 9-year-old, 10-year-old mark, they want to be able to jump in the front. They think they're old enough, but Louisiana law does say they have to be at least 13 years of age to ride in the front. So if that's some, habit that you have to change, we hope you go ahead and make that correction. If you have younger brothers or sisters that, want to do that every now and again, let's go ahead and make sure we tell them that the law is 13 and they do have to ride in the back. All right, is it legal to ride in the cargo area of an SUV? You might want to put your younger brothers and sisters in there sometimes, but no, it is not. Whenever they're inside the vehicle, they do have to be buckled in. Louisiana law does say that you can't transport people or more people than you have seat belts for. So you have to be able to provide a seat belt for them, and they have to be buckled while the vehicle is in motion. All right, so is it legal to ride in the back of a pickup truck? It is in Louisiana, yes. There was some questions about that. Yes, it is. No, you have to be buckled, but it is as long as you are 13 years and up, or I'm sorry, 12 years and up. 11 on down, you can't ride in the back. So you do have to be at least 12 years old, but no one of any age can ride in the back of a pickup truck on an interstate. Of course, we know the speeds are a whole lot higher out there on the interstates, and we want to make sure that nobody, whether adults or children, are riding in the back. And it also doesn't count for Mardi Gras parades, maybe, Christmas parades that's coming up. If you're going, 15 miles an hour or slower, then it doesn't count. And also, if you do have an adult with you back there during an emergency situation, then you can have those younger children ride in the back. But it's always best practice not to, just for safety reasons. Now, why are seatbelts not frequently present on school buses? I get this question a lot, especially in my sudden impact classes. And there are a couple answers to that. School buses are a whole lot larger whenever you compare them to regular vehicles, and they're a whole lot heavier. Their center of gravity is a whole lot taller also. So you have this bigger, heavier vehicle, typically a slower moving vehicle. It's got high visibility paint on it, and the flashing lights. And I'd say the majority of people are a whole lot safer around these vehicles because they know it carries our precious cargo, our younger children, all the way up through our high school years. Those are the ones that we especially want to be safe around. And so while they're on these vehicles, they do have a lot of seats. And those seats are compartmentalized, basically. If you think of an egg carton, the seats are close together, and they're kind of spongy. They have that material where it kind of bounces if you push on it, and it's right there in front of you. So if the vehicle is in motion or if it's stopped, if a car does strike it, remember, we have a heavier vehicle with a higher center of gravity, so it's not going to feel the impact as much. But then the kids are going to have those softer seats around them, and it's like that egg in the egg carton, to where it won't have a lot of distance to travel, so it'll be safer in its own little area. And that's why we need to make sure our children are seated while the vehicle is in motion. But also, if there's some type of emergency to where there's a crash or a fire or something to where the kids need to get out quickly, then the school bus driver would have to go and maybe help these children individually, one by one, to get those seatbelts off, so that you can imagine the amount of time that's going to take to clear that bus. So if the kids are able to get up freely, in some type of emergency, then that would definitely help things whenever it comes to getting everyone off in time. And I can't see the bottom question.
Jesse, do farm vehicle drivers have to wear a seatbelt?
Okay, they are one of our exempted drivers whenever it comes to our seatbelt laws, and there are some stipulations with that. But our postal workers who are running their route, basically doing under 25 miles an hour, they're not required to wear one. But farm vehicles also aren't required to wear a seatbelt as long as they're within 5 miles of their primary work location or their farm, whatever it may be. But it's always a good idea to wear it. They do have pickup trucks that are considered farm implements, and they will have a specific license plate that labels it as a farm truck. But once they get out on the roadway, they're still susceptible to crashes and to crash forces, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, they are exempted as long as they are working around their farm location.
Thank you so much, Jesse. And I see we have a question, and we'll get to that at the end. We definitely appreciate that. Awesome job, Jesse. Next, we have Ms. Shanita Vasquez from Louisiana Highway Safety Commission. She is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and after graduating from Baker High School, she enlisted in the U.S. Navy. She served 7 years on active duty. She completed 2 tours in Iraq, one in the USS Whidbey Island, LSD 41, and boots on the ground with the Task Force 184. Thank you for your service, Ms. Shanita. She fought in the War on Terror, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Once she successfully completed her active duty mission obligation, she enrolled and graduated from Southern University in Agriculture and Mechanical College, Baton Rouge, with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management. She volunteers to continue to serve her country. In 2014, she enlisted in the U.S. Navy Reserve, where she's currently classified as a drilling reservist. In 2010, Shanita started working for Baton Rouge Police Department in the county. A year later, she transferred to the legal department, where she became a senior legal specialist to the legal advisor, where she was also recognized as the 2018 Civilian of the Year. In 2019, she entered into state government with Highway Safety Commission, where she currently serves as the Occupant Protection, Diversity Outreach, Regional Coalition Program Coordinator. During 2020, Shanita completed her Master's of Business Administration and Project Management from Columbia Southern University. Thank you, Shanita. You can go ahead.
Bienvenidos. Estoy muy feliz de que todos ustedes pueden practicar en este seminario. Mi nombre es Janita Vasquez. Soy Baton Rouge, Louisiana, y trabajo en el Louisiana Highway Safety Commission. So I'm gonna stop right there because that's kind of where my Spanish limits. But what I said was, hello, welcome. I'm very happy that all you guys are able to be here with us today. My name is Shanita Vasquez. I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I work at the Louisiana Highway Safety Commission as the Occupant Protection, Diversity, Outreach Program Coordinator. Try to say that 3 times fast. I am very, very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much to Ashley, Ron, and Cassie for asking Highway Safety to be a part of this amazing webinar. I hope you guys are listening, pay attention, because these panelists that are going to be speaking to you today, like Trooper Lagrange, they're going to give you some great information to take on and also to pass on to other people in your family, your friends, and your coworkers. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Next slide, please. So why not start with a pop quiz? First question, well, my only question really. Approximately how many people live in Louisiana? And I'll give you guys like 20 seconds to look over this. We have 4,580,000, 185,000, 320 million, or 2,371,000. I didn't say the rest because that's a long time. So, so just think about that. How many people do you think live in Louisiana?
We have two that say A.
A. Okay.
And if any, oh, here we go. Here we go. We're getting, please answer in the Q&A session. Awesome.
Yes.
We have A's all the way.
All the way. So actually, the A's have it. Congratulations. So this number I got from the U.S. Census. So approximately, and there is a margin of error. There's approximately 4,580,000 to 4,680,000 residents in Louisiana. So before we go over to the next slide, I want to go over the rest of these answers for you. So letter B. B is 185,186. That is the number of people that are classified that are either deaf or hard of hearing. C, 322,775,000. That's an approximation of how many people there are in the United States. So in the United States of America, there's approximately 320 million to 328 million people that filled out the census that they can classify for, but there is that margin of error. The last one is 2,371,253. What number do you think that can be? I'm gonna give you guys like 15 seconds to type in, like, what do you think it could be? 2 million people. What category do you think that falls into?
And y'all can go ahead and put that in the Q&A and we'll see those answers.
So I'm gonna give you like 10 seconds.
We have car accident deaths, motor vehicle accidents, year in the US, visitors, drivers in Louisiana. Who are driving?
Okay, that's really good.
Wait. We got registered drivers. Okay, 5 more seconds. 4, 3, we got accidents. Accident. All right, and close.
And close. Okay,
What is it, Shanita?
Those are really good guesses, but there are actually in Louisiana, there are approximately 2 million women in Louisiana. So out of that 4,580,000, there's half of those are women. So, and then there's one thing that I did see here when you guys were giving your answers, and this isn't my part, I'm pretty sure someone else is going to cover this, but I heard people type accidents a lot. Actually, there is no such thing as an accident. That is classified as a crash. A crash means that something was preventable, something was not preventable. And because the majority of the crashes that happen, they're due to human error, those are classified as crashes. So from now on, we're just gonna go ahead and take that accident word out of our vocabulary. You accidentally fall down the stairs or something like that. You accidentally stub your toe. You accidentally ate that piece of cake. You don't accidentally rear in the back of somebody. So we're gonna take accident out of our vocabulary. So let's go to the next slide. Next slide. What is diversity? So diversity is the practice or quality of including or involving people from different race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, social economic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, disabilities. All that is basically saying diversity encompasses everybody, no matter what your background is, who you are, how you grew up, how much money you have, what type of car you drive, what school you went to, the color of your skin, your sexual orientation. Diversity is everyone. Blue eyes, big earrings, it doesn't matter. So how does this affect transportation safety? So in the beginning, when I first started talking, I was speaking in Spanish. How does this affect transportation safety is because there are a lot of people, as I stated in the beginning, across Louisiana. Louisiana, 62% is white Americans, Caucasian, 32% is Black, 1% is Asian, 5.3% is Hispanic. There's 185,000 people who are either deaf or hard of hearing. There's a large number of people on different socioeconomic levels. Bringing the traffic safety message, bringing the traffic safety message to those variety of people where they would be able to relate to it is very important. There, I noticed there's a lot of driving schools. There's a lot of students on here. I know everyone comes across so many different people, and don't you on a day-to-day basis try to relate to somebody. If you see somebody struggling with something, you want to know what's going on. So the traffic safety message needs to go across in different ways. So as far as the deaf or hard of hearing, that's in Louisiana, majority of the people who are deaf or hard of hearing does American Sign Language. Hispanics, that's speaking Spanish. So when I first started talking, I bet you some of you were like, what is she doing? You didn't know what I was saying. You probably picked up on my name, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, and Louisiana Highway Safety Commission. Everything else outside of that, you probably didn't know what was going on. Some people who actually paid attention a little bit in high school in Spanish, probably picked up on some of the stuff, but just think about transportation safety, learning how to buckle up in the car, making sure everyone knows if you're 13 and older, 12 and younger sits in the back, 13, you get to be promoted to the front seat, making sure that your child is rear facing until the age of 2 until the possible point, bringing that diversity message. So what we do, and especially these partners that's on the webinar with you, is we try to make sure that everybody, no matter what their background is, have the opportunity to learn about highway safety, transportation safety, traffic safety in a way that they can relate to. Next slide, please. So, what are some diversity efforts? What are you guys doing? So, I'm very, very pleased to be in partnership with great people around Louisiana. We actually have outreach efforts that's going to the deaf and hard of hearing community. We partner up with our WIC, that's the Women, Infant, and Children's programs, to bring transportation safety message to them. Our military outreach, as Cassie said in the beginning, I served a lot of time on active duty in the military, and I am a drill and reservist. One of the things that I do is travel a lot because I'm in Baton Rouge. I drill over 100 miles away, so I'm traveling once a month over that time. So what is that? I'm in the car. There are hundreds of people that come from all over Louisiana or all over other states to come to drill. So that's making sure that our military people are protected. Hispanic and Vietnamese community, we have amazing partners that are bringing the transportation message and translating it from English to Spanish and to Vietnamese. We also are very concerned about our mature drivers. Our mature drivers are the ones that are older, we're gonna say older than 40. That's what we're gonna call mature today. But those are our mature drivers. We're making sure that our parents, our grandparents are up to date and know how to ride in the vehicle, because there are now, I don't know about you guys, but there are these new cars that's coming out. There's a lot of buttons. I don't know what to do with half of those buttons. I had to take a class on what to do with those buttons. So the car fit is helping our mature drivers, making sure that they are a certain distance away from the steering wheel. They can see over the steering wheel. Their seat belt is going across their shoulder, over their hips. So we're also partnering with fraternities and sororities. Fraternities and sororities are helping us out with that young driver aspect, making sure that they help us get out the message. So this message is just to this part of the webinar is just to let you know that diversity is very important. We want everyone to know that they need to buckle up every trip, every seat, every time. We want our children to ride safe. We want them to be able to grow up, because also there's a lot of people that's coming from different countries and living in Louisiana. Louisiana is like a big old gumbo pot. We have everybody here. So you just throw them in the pot. So we want to make sure that they know, coming from their countries, that you know, it may, like in South America, seatbelt safety may not be as important as it is here, or in Africa, it may not be as important as it is here. We want them to know when they get here that, you know, everyone needs to be buckled up. Your children need to be riding in the car seat, and you need to have the car seat installed. If you can wiggle too much, with somebody's gonna say that, I don't want to steal nobody's thunder, but if you can wiggle it too much, that means that it's not installed properly. So I just again want to say thank you very much. I want to make sure that you guys know in English, buckle up every trip, every seat, every time. Also in Spanish, abróchate, cada viaje, cada asiento, cada vez. Thank you very much. And I will be here at the end if there are any questions for us, for me on diversity efforts. And if you would like to partner as well on any diversity efforts that you think. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Shanita. Thank you for all of that great information on diversity. You know, I don't think people see how much diversity there actually is.
Mhm.
So I definitely appreciate your presentation and sharing all of that great information with us.
Thank you.
Jesse, we have some more polling questions, and I'm gonna let you take it away.
All right, round two for our polling questions. Again, we have 5 of them here for you. So if you would go through those, and these are they a myth or is it real questions? There are a lot of things that go around. I have friends that, you know, they have their own answers to things where they think it's my opinion or this is what I heard. But let's go through these questions and see, you know, what is the real answer to it? Is this something that, you know, people made up, or is this, you know, a real thing, a real law, a real thing that keeps us safe, or things that can hurt us inside the vehicle? So
Y'all have 5 seconds left to answer. 5 seconds. We gotta give them 5 more seconds, Jesse.
All right.
I'm sorry, Trooper Lagrange.
First name's good.
There we go. Awesome.
All right. So we've got our answers here, and you can go ahead and use your cursor. I think you can do it on the screen and go through them and see. Number 4 was close to being half. Number 2 got close to being half. So that's pretty good. And what's y'all? Okay, let's go through these real quick. All right, if you have your car that has airbags, do you still need to wear your seatbelt? And that is a real thing here. Yes, you do have to wear your seatbelt. And let's put aside that, you know, it is the law that we have to buckle up. But think about that, you know, as a personal safety level. Yes, we want to wear our seatbelt, even if we do have airbags, because those airbags are a supplemental restraint system. If you look on your car on the dashboard or on the steering wheel, it'll say SRS. Supplement means in addition to. It's a secondary safety feature. Now, what is it safe or secondary to? Of course, we know the seatbelt. That's our primary safety feature once we get in the car, because if you're sitting in the back seat, you don't necessarily have those airbags in the front of you. So you might have those side curtain airbags, but you don't have the steering wheel, the dashboard. So that is still your primary safety feature. Now, airbags, as I said, are in addition to, just like vitamins are supplements. They're in addition to food. You know, we don't just eat vitamins day in and day out. You know, those are taken in addition to the food to give our body nutrition. So just because you have airbags doesn't mean you're safe without that seatbelt. You have to have it on. All right, number 2, seatbelts can trap you in a fire or underwater. Of course, that is a myth. I saw, you know, the answers were kind of close on this one, but it is a myth, because if you think about it, you have to survive the crash first. You know, surviving the crash is the main goal every time you get into a car and you travel down the roadway. If you think about jumping off a diving board into a swimming pool and do a belly flop, is it not, you know, a nice, comfy, soft pillow? No, our body hits it, it stings. Same thing with a car, except the car is going a whole lot faster. Whenever it hits the bayou and We're not short on bayous around here. You can go just about anywhere and find water in Louisiana. But you have to survive the crash first. Once the car hits it, your body's going to fly forward. And if you don't have your seatbelt on, you're going to get knocked out by hitting the dashboard, by hitting the windshield, or if you're in the back seat, you're going to fly over. So then you're not going to be able to get out the car at all. So you have to survive the crash first to increase your chances of getting out of the vehicle, whether it's a fire or being in water. All right, number 3, if you're not going far or not traveling fast, seatbelts really necessary? Of course they are. We'll look at a video here in a few seconds that'll show you the importance of it, but they are very necessary. We think about routine trips, it's just around the corner. I've gone there several times. I know my way, I'm familiar with it. But you got to remember, not everybody else is going as fast as you are. You may be obeying the speed limit, but somebody else may not. Once you get into that collision, their speed might be a whole lot greater than yours. And that's going to transfer into your vehicle, causing your damage and your injuries to be a little worse, maybe a whole lot worse. So just remember, if you're taking that little short trip, you never know what's going to happen because you don't know what the other drivers are going to be doing out there. So again, that goes back to being your primary safety feature. That's the number one thing you can do to keep yourself safe in the vehicle, in any seating position, and at any time. All right, so number 4, your seatbelt can hurt you in a crash. That is real. We don't think about it whenever it comes to seatbelts because it's there to keep us safe. It's there to protect us. But remember, just the same as your car or your truck is hitting another vehicle, your body is slamming into your seatbelt. Because when your body goes forward, where's that pressure coming from? It's the belt itself. Now they do stretch, they will give a little bit, but the idea behind the seatbelt is to slow your body down gradually, not all at once. People say the fall isn't what kills you, it's that sudden stop at the bottom. It's the same in car crashes. Airbags are there to do the same, to slow you down gradually. Once you come in contact with it, it's going to slow you down a little bit at a time, working with your seatbelt. That's also doing the same thing. And if your body's flying forward, say 60 miles an hour, and you weigh 200 pounds, anybody know the equation for force? No, I'll give it to you now, but it's mass times acceleration. So we can't change our body weight, but we can change our speed, that acceleration part. So I weigh 200 pounds, I'm doing 60 miles an hour. That is now 12,000 pounds of force. So even though we have that little seat belt, it is going to give. It is, made of cloth, but with 12,000 pounds, we're all human. And it is going to do a little bit of damage to us. But overall, it increases our chances of surviving that crash. And we'll see that in a little bit as well. I won't give that answer away. Number 5, you're safer in a pickup truck, so wearing a seatbelt is not necessary. Of course, that's a myth. People think because I'm in this big truck, it might be a jacked up 4x4 or something like that. I'm bigger than the little cars that are out there, the smaller ones, but you're still a human, still traveling, still have weight. So that speed and that weight doesn't change. No, the crash forces aren't going to change. Just because you're in a bigger vehicle, you're still susceptible to injuries because your body can still fly around if you're not wearing a seatbelt, and it will. Nobody is strong enough to fight off 12,000 or even more pounds. So it all depends on your speed. But for occupants and SUVs, pickups, vans, these are all typically bigger vehicles, but seatbelts can reduce the fatal injury to the driver and the front seat passenger by 60%. Huge difference. So those odds, you want those on your side at all times. So always wear your seatbelt. And number 6, it's not important for guys to wear seatbelts. They are the least at risk in a crash because they're bigger and stronger, right? But we've got maybe more mass, more muscle, all those things that make us guys, but more mass, more muscle is more weight. And then with speed, your odds are going a whole lot further down whenever you're not wearing a seatbelt, because you're going to have a little bit more crash forces on your body. So because young men are most at risk, they want to be daredevils, might be, uh, want to challenge or not wear their seatbelts, to kind of go against the law type thing and say, oh, I'm not going to wear it. I think it should be my right or something like that. But male passenger vehicle occupants 18 to 34 who were killed in car crashes in 2017, 60% of them were not buckled. Again, we see that 60% number. And think about all those deaths that didn't have to happen. And that's a number that we need to work on to reduce. And we hope that you guys will do that.
Thank you so much, Jesse. And if there's one thing to remember, it's that equation you shared for force. Weight times speed equals the impact. So teach others what you've learned today. Round 3, polling questions. We're going to give you a minute to go through them. I think y'all can all answer them very quickly. Best guess.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Trooper Lagrange. Let's see what they said.
All right. Pretty good on 1, 2, and hopefully everyone was able to get through those pretty quickly. Number 4 was unanimous. Number 5 is unanimous. All right. Now we'll go over these real quick. True or false, every state has at least some kind of seatbelt law. And that is false. 49 states have seatbelt laws. And the one state that doesn't is New Hampshire. They don't have anything as far as, adults and teenagers, things like that. But they do have a child passenger safety law or requirements in their state. But outside of that, they don't. So not too many people know that. So 49 states out of 50. Hopefully one day we can make it 50. All right, number 2, how many unbuckled passenger vehicle occupants died in 2017? All right, 10,000 occupants, and that is out of around 35,000 a year. And that is approximate. I know some numbers it's up close to around 36,000, but these numbers are way too high. And we can do our part by wearing our seatbelts to get those numbers down. Hopefully with this new year, we can change that trend. All right, number 3, if you wear a seatbelt correctly while riding in the front seat of a car, your chances of a fatal injury are reduced by 45%. Now, making it the most important thing you can do in a day. So if you think about all the things that we do, but riding in the car is one of the number one things. Sometimes it might be that school bus, but it's something that we do every day. It's something we get accustomed to. And we just need to make sure that, because I've been okay all throughout the years without wearing a seatbelt, that, I'm okay tomorrow. We need to change that habit if it is a bad one and make sure that we wear our seatbelt. All right, number 4, is it best to use your seatbelt on long trips or short trips? And I think we all did 100% on this one, that it is both, because all trips can lead to serious or fatal injuries. And we don't think about them that way because, like I said, we get away with it a lot. And we might not come across that person who is impaired or not paying attention and get involved in that crash in the first place. But you never know when those things are going to happen. So make sure you click that belt and do it every trip because, we don't want to make it your last trip. Now, number 5, what is the best defense against drunk drivers on the road? Again, that one was unanimous. Seatbelt, because there's no other way to really help what they're doing, but you can limit the injuries that you can incur whenever it comes to those crash forces.
Thank you so much,
Uh,
Trooper Lagrange, and thank you all for your participation in this. Next, Trooper Lagrange is also going to tell us a little bit about the new child passenger safety law that was enacted in 2019.
Yes, last year the law did change, and that was for a good reason, because there was the laws in our state, and then there was best practice. And a lot of times we had to go kind of, against what our law said, because there were better things that we could do outside of law to protect our children. So from birth to at least 2 years old, they have to be rear facing in an infant carrier or a convertible child safety seat. And that's just one that once they're big enough, they can spin that child seat around and convert it to forward facing. So that's why it calls it that. But it's at least two. If they can benefit from staying rear facing longer, go ahead and do that, because that seat does offer them the most protection while they're rear facing, because their heads are, pretty heavy and their necks aren't developed and strong enough to support that weight whenever they're involved in that collision. So that is the best part, best practice whenever it comes to that. And then from there, we moved into the forward facing seats. And if you can see those pictures there, they do range, if you look at the children, from a younger age group up to bigger. If you see the bottom right corner where got the little young man in his Cub Scout uniform there, but you can see their age difference. Now from 2 years old on up, at least to more than likely 6 years old, we want them in that forward facing harness that gives them 5 points of contact basically, and it's going to keep their little bodies back whenever they're involved in that crash, because we have to remember crashes are violent and children are depending on us, whether they know it or not, to make sure they're safe when riding in a vehicle. And then from 4 up to 8 years old, once the children are getting into that bigger age group, we know children vary in size, they vary in weight, in height, and so the law is a little bit more broad whenever it comes to their age, size, and weight, things like that, because you might have an 8 or a 9 or a 10-year-old who's bigger or smaller than other kids their age. So it does allow for that a little bit of wiggle room. But if you have somebody who's 8 years old and is approaching that 9-year-old threshold where they can get out of that car seat or that booster seat, then there's a 5-step process that the state has developed to make sure that child will be safe in that vehicle. And that 5-step process is there at the bottom, where number 1, their backs have to be up against the back seat. Number 2, their knees bend at the natural bend or the edge of the seat. The lap belt in number 3 lines up across their lap and properly. It's not too high or too low. I definitely don't want it too high, because then it'll be sitting in their abdominal area, closer to the stomach. And we think about all the crash pressures that are put from that seatbelt, as we talked about earlier. So if it's too high, then they might need to be in that booster seat again to get them back up. But then number 4, you have to make sure that that shoulder belt goes across the collarbone, basically. It's going to cross all the strong bones of the body, the sternum, the rib cage, and down to the hips and the pelvis to support all that weight if they are involved in a crash. And then number 5, they have to make sure that they sit there properly and safely the whole time. Make sure that they don't buckle it, that they don't put the shoulder strap behind them, but they wear it properly. And that way they'll be safe, because like I said, you never know when crashes are going to happen.
Thank you so much, Trooper Lagrange, and thank you, University Medical Center, for sharing all that information, and the Louisiana Passenger Safety Task Force. And our next presenter is part of that, as well as Trooper Lagrange. If you have any other questions, please make sure to visit the Buckle Up Louisiana Facebook page. All of this information can be found there for child passenger safety. Next up is Miss Tracy Lemaire. She's married with 2 daughters, 24 and 16. She's moved here from New York in June of 1990. She has a bachelor's in behavioral science from New York Institute of Technology, as well as a bachelor's of science in criminal justice from UL Lafayette. She graduated school studies focused on injustices against women and minorities, longest standing board member of the Hearts and Hope Center for Sexual Trauma. She's the state coordinator for our Sudden Impact since 2014. She's also the Acadiana Area Regional Coordinator, Louisiana Passenger Safety Task Force. She's a certified technician and instructor. She's worked in social service since the 90s. She specialized in injury prevention initiatives since 2004. And she truly believes that if you love the work you do not work a day in your life. All of these work experiences has led her to this point, she says. And take it away, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So the purpose of me being here today is to talk about what we have.
Tracy, hold on one moment, please. Let's look at that audio just to make sure. Y'all didn't know that she was also a transformer.
Yeah, that's what she sounded like.
She is that amazing. So we're going to look at that audio. Please bear with us just for a second. And during that second, why don't y'all think of any Q&As that you can go ahead and put in that chat box that we're going to take care of after our next 2 presenters. You do not want to miss Tracy, and you certainly don't want to miss Mr. Dylan Ivey. He's going to tell you how to put all of these great things that you were learning into action. So please just bear with us for one moment while we fix that audio for you.
Right there.
Oh, Tracy, we have a comment that says my favorite New Yorker. We'll tell you the answer to that later.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so much better.
Much
Thank
better.
you so much, Tracy. Thank you.
Sure. So the purpose of me being here today is to share the information about our Saved by the Belt Award, which is what we do when we get information pertaining to people that were in car crashes, and because they were wearing their seatbelt and not being at fault for the crash, they get awarded for and being recognized for having done that. So the program honors and recognizes individuals involved in crashes that were saved because they were wearing a seatbelt or properly restrained in a child safety seat. It is hoped that by promoting the benefits of the seatbelt usage, by using positive reinforcement in the way of awarding saved individuals for their conscientious use of occupant restraint, others will be encouraged to do the same. And with that, today we're going to briefly talk about Sydney and her award. Next slide, please. So Sydney Braun is a young student from Ascension Episcopal School of Acadiana. She is a volleyball team player, and she was involved in a crash on July 21st where a girl went through a stop sign and she T-boned her. So these pictures are of her car, and those pictures are of the car of the other young lady who was driving. Both of them were seatbelted. Fortunately, and both those sustained some pretty serious injuries. To Sydney's credit, it should be really recognized. When the crash happened, it was late at night. She was coming home from a mutual friend's home. And when the crash happened, they were on the road by themselves in the dark for about 10 minutes before any first responders had come. And she did not hear the sound of the other driver for a little while, to the point where she was feared that she had killed her. But once she started making noise, she was screaming so loudly and in excruciating pain that just by circumstances, the first responder had come to Sydney's car first, and Sydney asked that they please go to help the other young woman because she was so afraid of the injuries just by hearing how excruciating the screams were. The other young woman, I believe, broke her jaw and maybe her pelvis. You can change the slide. Sydney had some other injuries, which I'll talk about in a second. So the reason that seatbelts are so important is that first and foremost, it keeps you in the vehicle. And these are some things that Jesse had explained earlier. It also protects the brain, neck, and spinal cord. It'll cross the hardest bones of your body, which are protecting the soft organs. It distributes the force of energy so that not every part, so that the energy is separated around your body and not being put in one spot, and deaccelerates the force, which helps you ride down the crash. And so by having all of those things in action is what helps you protected in a crash. So this little slide shows you a video of how a crash works and how the seatbelts work in the crash. It is a European video, but you could see this, it's the same effect. This is a crash that's going 25 miles an hour. And as you can see, the back seat passenger is behind the driver, behind the passenger. The driver is not wearing a seatbelt and is causing him to come over to meet the driver, which can cause some serious injuries, if not a fatality. It says that it's known that backseat passenger drivers in crashes are 2 times as likely to die in a crash if their backseat passengers are not seatbelted. Next slide, please. So Sydney is here in recovery. These are just a couple of pictures that her mom had shared with me. You can go to the next slide. Sydney had broken both ankles and there was an injury or a gash to her knee, which is the upper left corner picture there, that actually took over 200 stitches inside and out to repair. Next slide. We talk about people in crashes and we talk about the statistics and how many serious injury crashes we hear about around the state or the country and how many fatalities, but Sydney is also somebody's daughter and sister and a teammate for her volleyball team. And so her face is not just a number. And it's important that people realize that numbers have faces attached to them, and it's all of those people are significant and important to save in the event of a crash and to educate to make sure that they know how to do that for themselves. Next slide. This is when she finally got to go back to school. Again. And if you look on the left-hand side, the only girl wearing the little blue trim on her socks, this is one of the volleyball games, prior to a volleyball game, after she had her crash and repairs of her bodily injuries. So she's jumping up and down, and this is because she was wearing her seatbelt. She's able to still be part of the team and play volleyball. I don't know why the video is not playing. That is, it's right. Ron reminded me, it's the state quarter final match that she got to be in because she wore her seatbelt. I'm sure on July 21st or 2nd, she did not think she would ever be able to do that again. Next slide. So on November 18th, we went to the school that she attends, Ascension, and we had her peers come into the gymnasium, and we got to publicly show them the significance of what wearing the seatbelt can do. And we awarded her with this presentation. I spoke, Trooper Gosson spoke, and her mother, Sydney actually spoke as well and shared her story. But this is what our award looks like when we present it to the student or to adults. We've done adults also received Saved by the Belt awards. Next slide. So this is us afterwards, and Trooper Voisin is the one who worked the crash after onto the scene after it happened. So that's him with her on the bottom right, and that's our team. Nurse Dana Rogers from Lafayette General and Trooper Tommy Gosson and Trooper Scott Simmons are part of the sudden impact team here in Lafayette, and that we were all together to honor her for her good decisions. Next slide. So as Cassie said, I am both the state coordinator for sudden impact and the regional coordinator for the Louisiana Passenger Safety Task Force in the Acadiana area. I love being involved in these initiatives, and I feel that I do a great service to the community, and we as a team have done wonderful things to help save the lives of young drivers and occupants of all ages through the task force. And if you happen to know of anybody that was in a crash that would be suitable to receive a Saved by the Belt award, please let us know. We do them all over the state, and we would love to be able to continue to recognize people for making the correct choices by buckling up every seat, every ride, every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. And you're right. There is a face or faces to each crash, each fatality. And I want to thank Sydney for allowing us to share her story. She is a very strong young woman. And I hope that you all take this story and share with others, because seatbelts do save lives. All right, we're going to do our last round of polling questions. We're going to go really quick. I thank you all for spending this time with us, and please bear with us through these polling questions, because we have the best part also, because you're going to be able to take all this great information that Trooper Lagrange and Tracy and Shanita has shared with you, and Dylan's going to show you how to put that in action. So let's get through this last round of polling questions, and we're going to do a speed round. So 5 questions, get through them.
All right, our last 5. Hopefully y'all can fly through these. And hopefully the answers are kind of obvious to you, but we'll find out here in a second. All right, so we're getting close to the end. Those last 2. All right, here are our answers. All right, so through them again. The majority we've got on, looks like 10. And again, kind of evenly spread out towards the end, except for number 5. All right, so let's go through those real quick. All right, most crashes happen within 25 miles from home. Yes, and what we believe with that is, I mean, people get more complacent. They're almost home. They're almost done with their ride, with their trip. And so they kind of let their guard down. And then that plays into a lot of short trips. Again, we think we're just going around the store. We might not have to wear our seatbelt, but that's when bad things happen, because we're familiar with the area and we kind of, let our guard down. So hopefully 25 miles makes sense to you. Child restraint use drops by 40% when? Hopefully most of y'all picked when parents ride without their seatbelts. Children are creatures of habit, and what they see us do, and of course this includes our cell phones, so we'll throw that in there as well. But if we see them doing it, then they're probably going to emulate that. So they're going to do the same thing, same behavior. Teenagers, this goes again with your peers. So if you've got friends that do it, or if you want your friends to have better habits, let them see you put it on, them see you put that phone down, and hopefully they'll pick up that habit and do the same thing. All right, so number 3, in 2017, seatbelts saved approximately how many lives? And that answer was 15,000. And again, that's around the same population as a major university. And that's every year. So imagine all those lives that were saved just by wearing that seatbelt, just making that one decision to click it in, and making them themselves safer on the road. So we're so thankful for that, but we need that number to increase. All right, number 4, in 2016, what percentage of passenger vehicle occupants age 15 to 18 years old were not using restraints when killed in traffic crashes? That number was 58%, so it's over half, way too high. Think about all those lives that could have been saved. I mean, over half the lives that were involved in serious crashes could have been saved, or more than likely saved, by having that seatbelt on. Again, we're not telling you that seatbelts are going to save you every time, because the faster people go, the bigger the mess is. So we always want to keep that in mind, and let's not speed and wear our seatbelts. And then number 5, wearing your seatbelt is your best insurance to prevent injury and death in a tragic case of a motor vehicle crash. True. We all know that. Everyone got that one right. But it is the most important thing you can do because, as I said, you might not be driving. You might be in the back seat. Can't control what happens, but you can control whether you put your seatbelt on or not. So make sure we do that. Buckle up every time, every trip, and prevent those injuries from happening.
Thank you so much, Trooper Lagrange. I really
You're welcome.
appreciate all of that great information. And please make sure to put your Q&As in the box. We have a few to go over, and Ron will take that away later. But this is your last opportunity for a Q&A. But now I'm going to introduce our last and final speaker, and he's going to share with you all the great things that you can take all this information and do in your own community. Dylan Ivey serves as the Louisiana State Coordinator for SAD, the Students Against Destructive Decisions. His prevention route started in high school as a SAD student, and not really. He was just a student against destructive decisions. And through the years, his passion for saving lives has turned into his career. For the last 8 years, he has spent most of his time educating the young novice drivers and regarding occupant protection initiatives, as well as implementing SAD's Rock the Belt program in parishes across the Louisiana state. Take it away, Dylan.
Thank you so much for having me here this evening, and thank you so much to the coalitions for putting this together. It's an honor to be with you today to talk about this click that saves lives that so many of you know about, your seatbelt, and specifically about what we've done at SAD in regards to peer-to-peer strategies and things that you can do to encourage youth to promote that message to their peers. Okay, so we're going to advance to the next slide. Okay, so about SAD. So for nearly 40 years, SAD has served for the nation as the nation's premier youth health and safety organization. And SAD stands for Students Against Destructive Decisions. And one thing about SAD is that we welcome youth participation, right? We know that in order to influence teens and young people, we want them at the table, and we want to really make a difference in their lives in doing that. And so that's where this peer-to-peer process begins, is a lot of the times in their schools, in their communities, and in those parishes that they work in. And a lot of this work that I'm going to show you today, some of the different things that we've done over the years as it relates to occupant protection and seatbelt specifically, comes from student ideas that they developed on their own. And so we have several different programs that we offer. We have, a lot of programs that we do, a lot of outreach for the GDL program, seatbelt safety, which is our Rock the Belt program, which is what we do here in Louisiana. Also, we talk about drowsy driving, impaired driving, distracted driving in other parts of the country. But today's focus, of course, is seatbelts. So in Louisiana, we do a program called Rock the Belt, and it is actually sponsored by the Louisiana Highway Safety Commission. And we encourage students to buckle up in every ride, every seat, every time. It's a relay competition that we usually do when COVID is not among us. That's a little bit more tricky to do in today's new climate that we're faced with, but definitely still things that we can do to raise awareness and encourage students to buckle up in every ride, every seat, every time. We do a quick click challenge where students compete and relay around a car, and they buckle up in all 4 seats as quickly as they can to get record timing. And when we go to different schools to do this work, the campaigns that we do look very different, right? Depending on the students, depending on the school, depending on what works best for them and their parish, depending on their communities, whether we have community partners or not coming to the table. And so some of the things that you're going to see, some pictures of different work that students have done that have really, they came up with these ideas to really encourage their peers to wear their seatbelt and buckle up. Okay, so the first thing, before we can even talk about peer-to-peer programming, we really have to talk about what are some essential elements, right? And NHTSA has deemed peer-to-peer programming a very valuable resource in traffic safety education. And so these are some elements that NHTSA has pretty much put out as guidance that, what peer-to-peer programming should include, right? So it should be teen-led, meaning that students are the ones coming up with the programming pieces, the activities. It should be led by teens. They should be involved, right? They should be front and center and be involved in part of the work that you're doing. In order to change their behavior, they have to have that buy-in. They have to have some part in it and play some role in it as well. And it should be inclusive, right? It should include all people. It should include people of all background, like Shanita was talking about with diversity, right? It should include everyone. Everyone comes from different homes, different backgrounds, different communities. And it's very important that you bring everyone to the table. So when you're thinking of a school, you're going to want to include the cheerleaders, the band. You're going to want to include people that are on the football team, all students, not just a select group of students, all students. And then it's supposed to be sustainable, right? And that just means that, it's important that peer-to-peer programming have some type of adult support, some type of support system that keeps things organized. It kind of keeps things together, and also sustainable in the sense from a funding perspective that your program is able to continue to run. It's very important that that adult support is there. And then some form of a facilitated training. When we do our quick click challenges, if we have an opportunity to meet with the students a little bit early, this can be as formal or informal as you want it to be, right? It doesn't have to be a formal sit down training depending on what the project or activity is that you're trying to do with the students. But it's very important that they understand the meaning behind the work that they're doing. And that can be done in a simple training, but there has to be some type of, in order for it to be teen-led and truly peer-led, they have to receive some form of training, right? And then that whole why component is super, super important. Your measurables, whatever you plan on, whatever your goal is, whatever your objective is that you plan on accomplishing, it's so important that that's clearly defined to the teens and the young people that you're going to be working with. And so one of the things that you'll quickly learn about teenagers is that they really don't want to get involved in something unless they understand why it's important. What we like to do is do a pre and post observational seatbelt survey before we do any type of either rock the belt quick click challenge or any type of prevention activity, just so that they can see that, because a lot of them are wearing their seatbelts and they may be doing the right thing, but when they start to see that their peers are not, it makes them realize, what exactly are we doing? What are we doing this for? And why is this important, right? Teens really want to understand, why is this important? And they have to have that buy-in to really be involved. And also, it's supposed to be positive. The work that you're doing, you're trying to put a positive spin on something that, depending on how the message is delivered, it can be taken the wrong way. You don't ever want to come off that you're judging someone for not doing what's right. So it's super important that you do it in a positive, uplifting way, that you're not using scarce tactics or things like that, right? Things that are positive, and you're doing something that really makes a difference, that they can understand, that young people can understand why this is important, and it's the right thing to do. If you're trying to change negative behavior, you shouldn't use negative, methods or elements, right? And then incentives and recognition. So incentives could be things that you're encouraging that positive behavior to continue to happen. And some of the examples that I'm going to show you today was where we actually in the past have given out incentives for doing positive things in the community, whether you're wearing your seatbelt. Maybe you give someone a coupon for wearing your seatbelt or whatever, incentivize someone to do that behavior more frequently, more often. And then recognizing the teens is super important as well. Everyone wants to feel like they're a part of the team. They want to feel like they're welcome. They want to feel like they bring something to the table, and that's how you want them to keep coming back. You want teens to continue to come back. So it's super important that you recognize them for their hard work and their efforts. And that can be something as simple as a thank you note. I write many and many of those, but it could be anything, any type of recognition that you can give them, a quick text message. Thank you for your help today, and that sounds like something very simple, but you'd be surprised when you incorporate this in your work and you include recognition in your work. It really does make a big difference in the sustainability of your program. And then the last part, which is very important, is evaluation, right? Making sure that your program is successful, and making sure that your program is, clearly defined, that those, desired outcomes are obtained. And so that evaluation component is extremely important as well. Next slide. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to tell everyone about was our Quick Click Challenge, which is a high energy team competition that demonstrates how easy it is for a teen or anyone to put on their seatbelt. And so, what we do is we break teams into groups of 4. We have them relay around the car as quick as they can, buckle their seatbelt. And what it teaches them is that if they can buckle their seatbelt in 4 seats, stumble around all 4 of their friends, running around, get out, run around the car, and they can do this in like 30 seconds, 4 times. How easy is it for them to put on their seatbelt the minute they get in the car, right? 3 seconds or less. It's super easy, super high energy, very competitive. I love a great competition, and the teens love it too. This is something that we actually go into the schools and implement, and we'd love to implement it in your communities. I know we've got several different people represented on the call, and depending on where you're located, we could possibly make that happen. But it's not something that we have to do alone, right? We're willing to share this with everyone. And if it's something that you can do and implement, and you want to implement in your community, we're happy to have those conversations with you. We want this work to continue, and we want people to do this. It's definitely something that we love doing, and we would love to come and be a part of it. But it's very important that students are involved, and they're involved in this by participating, but also leading this and facilitating the effort. So they can be a part of it by ensuring that their peers are buckling up when they're actually participating, right? Blowing the whistle out between individual rounds of the game as they run around the car. We also usually have flag people that are helping us, and also taking pictures and doing things like that to really make it fun and upbeat, and just make it as really great of a good time as we can. It's positive, it's uplifting, and it encourages them to wear their seatbelt. Next slide. Okay, so this is something that we've really done for many years, and some of you may be familiar actually with Chalk the Walk. And it's something that we kind of, because of COVID, SAD really had to pivot. I mean, our whole organization was dependent on students, students against destructive decisions. And so we really had to try to come up with ways that students could do some of the work that we do in the schools at home. And so actually during the quarantine, this was just 2 of the images that our students actually did with chalk messages in their concrete, in their driveways at home. But it's Chalk the Walk, right? You give a kid a piece of chalk, and you're amazed to see what they can do and the messages that they can really create in their community. This was great when we did this around Halloween. We had some students participate in this, and they drew chalk messages all up and along their driveways and all along their sidewalks. When people were walking around to trick or treat, this is what they were seeing in their subdivisions and in the areas that they were in. So this is just some of the best artwork, in my opinion, that we have had since a lot of this quarantine, COVID has happened. This has really been a successful activity that we've continued to do. But this was also something that we would do in the schools, right? And it's funny, it's crazy to me. High school, these were both high school students that did these 2. But I mean, high school students love chalk just as much as elementary kids. You'd be so surprised what a high school student will do with some chalk. Okay, this is something that we've done several times depending on the holiday, and we call it Sweet Safety Treats. And this particular one we did during Valentine's Day, and this was sweet tarts, and they had a message on them that said, "You're too sweet to be ejected from your seat." The students came up with the message. They came up with the candy that they wanted to put on the message, that they wanted to use the candy for the specific message, and they dispersed them into their school. It was really cool. They did it all through the commons area, and it was very, very interesting to see how quick the message got around the campus with just passing out candy. This was something that we did on Valentine's Day, and this was actually a high school-led effort where a high school walked across the street to actually do this with the middle school students. And so it was really cool to see those groups of students come together and really make a difference in their community. This was that, in what we were talking about earlier with incentivizing good, positive behaviors behind the wheel. We partnered with a local Mexican restaurant to disseminate free queso coupons to people who were wearing their seatbelt. And so we got a group of high school students together, and actually they went and did this at Walmart. This particular group of students did this at a local Walmart near their hometown. And so they went and partnered with a Mexican restaurant, and the Mexican restaurant was super supportive and made the coupons and gave them to us. And it was great for them because it brought people into their business to participate and be a part of their restaurant, so they would increase their sales, right? So it was great for them. It didn't cost us anything because, we didn't have to, try to find funding to get this done. I mean, the restaurant donated in a sense to the people that, were buckling up and participating. And so that was really great to see. And so that's kind of one of the things that we talked about, was incentivizing good, positive behaviors behind the wheel. And the conversations that started from this were pretty impressive too, to see the students interact. And what it does for the students is really monumental. I mean, it really is phenomenal to see students come out of their comfort zone and get them working on a topic area that they really like to talk about and they really want to talk about, because they know they're saving lives by doing this. And the people that are getting the queso coupons were just super excited because they got a free queso from this Mexican restaurant. So that's part of that incentivizing good work. Okay, and this is what we call a fashion show, right? Kind of a play on a fashion show. But basically, we've had students throughout the years, and this is two different scenarios here, where they basically take duct tape. You give a student a roll of duct tape, and you encourage them to actually design a seat belt with a life-saving message on it that they wear around campus that day. And you work it out with the administration that, hey, this is something that they're going to do. Is this okay that they do? And would they be allowed to have basically a free dress day and wear this at school this day? And they do. And it's like a fashion show around the school. Or you could do something a lot more formal, depending on if your school does like a specific prom fashion show, or if they do something similar, at school that's relatively maybe around prom, depending on when it was. But just something that encourages them yet again to buckle up and wear their seatbelt. And it's a conversation starter. When they're walking down the hall, they're like, what is on your shirt? And it's a seatbelt, right? So, and the next one is I buckle up because. And so we've kind of changed this during the pandemic, since, everything has started with everything being virtual. Usually if we're in person, would have students actually take duct tape and do this and write, something that really hits close to them. So like they wear their seatbelt because they love their parents, or they wear their seatbelt because they love to dance, or like trying to make them find, you figure out a way that, why do you wear your seatbelt? You do it, yes, because it's a law, and you do it because, it keeps you safe. But what's the true, like, what is something that's really near and dear to your heart that really makes you want to wear your seatbelt? You wear your seatbelt to live. And what are you living for, right? And so really kind of getting them to figure out ways to kind of think outside the box on that. And then we promote that on social media, and they promote it on their social media. And so the one on the left, you'll see there's a student where she just took a selfie, like a seatbelt selfie of herself wearing her seatbelt, which we do a lot of those as well. And then she just put a little text box around her seatbelt of why she buckles up. I buckle up, I wear my seatbelt for my family, or I wear my seatbelt so that I can see my dog when I get home, or whatever, whatever's closest to them. And so those are just some of the things that we have done, just kind of a little spotlight really quickly of what we've done at SAD to really encourage youth to continue to educate their peers on the importance of wearing their seatbelt. If I can ever be of assistance to you, your team, your coalition, please reach out. We'd love to partner. We have schools that we need to get into and reach. And if that's something that we can work together to make that happen and bring our message to your communities, we would love to do that. So thank you all for your time today. And I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Dylan. That is such great information. And thank you for sharing how to put all of this information into action. I cannot thank you, Shanita, Jesse, and Tracy enough. And Ron, our coordinator in Acadiana, is going to handle the Q&A. And I want to thank you all participants for being on and having questions and bearing with us through our technical difficulties. Ron, take it away.
Yeah, first off, can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. We had some difficulties earlier, and I'm glad we ironed those out. First, I'm going to fix my hair real quick, present myself for television. We had three questions that came up through Q&A. The first was, why is it legal to ride in the back of a truck, but not in the back of an SUV cargo area? The risk in the back of the truck seems greater. I initially typed a response to that, and I basically my response was that I agree with the observation because it seems to be accurate, but the law in Louisiana says that if you are a passenger in a motor vehicle, inside a motor vehicle, one person per factory installed seatbelt is what is, that's the law. I agree. It would seem to be safer in the cargo area of an SUV as opposed to the back of a pickup truck, but that's what the law says. The next question that came up is, why can't our radio stations have a segment in the morning that can address traffic safety locally? As far as radio stations go, KPEL is a fantastic safety partner of ours. And we use frequently are asked to speak to KADN here locally. And as far as people in the other areas, I would check your local radio stations and local television stations. They do run these spots. Sometimes catching them and finding them can be difficult. They are generally very early in the morning, which Ashley can attest to that, having had to be there very early on many occasions. But they do run those. It's sometimes just a little difficult to find. And the final question we had was, does the height and weight still apply for booster seats? Yes, it does. First, I'm going to say that for the most accurate information on this, that you should probably refer to Louisiana Revised Statute 32:295. Louisiana has been noted as having one of the premier child safety seat laws in the country. And it's you should be able to find your answers there. However, one of our speakers from earlier, Tracy Lemaire or Michael Toops, and I know he was on here, I saw his name earlier, are also good people as a resource to find for answers to other questions regarding this. You can also check Buckle Up Louisiana and Louisiana Sudden Impact, both good resources.
Can I add something to that, Ron?
Absolutely.
Just whenever it does come to the individual child seat, make sure you check the side of the child seat where all the stickers are and read those stickers, and it'll give you the height and weight limits for that particular seat, because it does vary from car seat to car seat. So keep that in mind. Whatever you do have, check the side of it and compare that to your child and get the information from that also.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Right now, as I'm looking, there are no further questions. So in an effort to wrap things up, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Trooper Lagrange, Shanita Vasquez, Tracy Lemaire, and Dylan Ivey. Clearly an exceptional lineup of presenters today with such great and valuable information for us. Huge shout out to Ashley Moran. I know she's not expecting it, but Ashley really put in a ton of work to put all of this together and put everything in its neat place to pull this off. But on behalf of Cassie Parker and myself, I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And please, everybody, be safe on our Louisiana roadways.
And buckle up.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful New Year's and happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.